Blank. You're with Julian on the Brown Notes and a review of Hitman, a romantic comedy. And the most astonishing thing is not that I'm reviewing a romantic comedy, my most detested of all genres, but Richard Linklater, one of the most interesting auteurs in American film, has directed a wild left turn on his filmography. Came to prominence with Slacker, the much-loved Dazed and Confused, also known for his Sunrise trilogy of philosophical romances like Before Sunrise and Before Midnight and Before whatever. And also some interesting animated films, like I think A Scanner Darkly was one, and Waking Life was an amazing film as well. Did the Fast Food Nation films, done a few documentaries. One of the most overrated films of the entire century, in The Interminable Boyhood, which I thought was awful, has come back with a rom-com. It is the most bizarre thing. It's broadly based on the true story of Gary Johnson, who worked for a police department in America. As he wasn't a member of the police department, but he had a knack for pretending to be a hitman. I think he was a college professor, and he's shown in this film to be a college professor still, who is roped into the police department as someone that can stand in these initial meetings between very low-level people that want to kill their wives, who go out into the criminal underworld for the first time. It's all very entrapment-y. But then again, they are actually trying to pay someone to kill their wives or to kill their business partner or something like that. So they do intend to follow through on them dying. So when they go out into, these shady bars and say, I want to find a hitman, the people they're talking to are just always talking straight to the police. So I think he got about 70 people convicted over the course of his years, and they show him at the end of the film and say about how cool a guy he was and all of this. So on one hand, I'm thinking he's a massive narc, and on the other hand, these are people that had handed over money to actually go through with the act of murdering somebody that was completely innocent, apart from, in the case of Adria Arjona, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Where's she from? Arjona, Puerto Rico. Now, anyone that watched the film Triple Frontier would have been absolutely enwrapped with her, not only for her looks, but she had an electric screen presence, and I've been waiting for her to get a decent big role, and this looks like being one of the best reviewed films of the year. She plays a wife that wants to kill her husband. And when the Gary Johnson character, played by Glen Powell, who's an actor that everyone is now saying, it's the summer of Glen Powell. He's fantastic in this, and very charming, very good looking, and very cool. And he notably changes his hitman persona based on who his contact is. So he tries to feed them the person that they want a hitman to be. He meets her and reads under the covers that she's obviously a very abused woman who's scared for her life, and convinces her not to go through with it, which starts a romance between the two, which he tries to keep out of the eye of the police, who are following his every move because he's always on tape and so on, which later on in the film, her husband then reverses tables on her. She ends up being sketchy as hell, and you would let her do anything. I mean, there's like, so what? I don't care. She's so gorgeous and so cool and so much fun. And that's basically it. It's him going through sort of various mental stages about what he's doing, and you see the court proceedings and so on, where lawyers are trying to make out that he's entrapping everyone and so on. Where he goes through all these different people that he basically convinces that he's a hitman and to hand over the money, and then they get arrested. There's not any more to the plot than that. And it's sort of like the reawakening of him as a human being and making him into something that is far more exciting. So there's this sort of philosophical role play element of this very dull teacher suddenly becoming this exciting teacher, in a similar way to the film Another Year with Mads Mikkelsen, the way that once Mads Mikkelsen sort of engages on this path of renewal, that he becomes this exciting, sexy teacher at school. And it's the same thing that happens here. There's not a big plot here. All of the cast are amiable as hell. It's very funny. It's very enjoyable. And it's a little bit slight. I think I'd be reviewing it in context of, is it the best film of the year? I would say it is a bit superficial. I was totally in love with the leads. Glen Powell and Adria Arjona are just magnificent together. It's probably not only the only good rom-com I've seen in the last 10 years, but it's an outstanding one. Crazy Rich Asians, I'm looking at you. It has none of the penalties of a rom-com and none of the like country music rote songwriting that goes into rom-coms, going through exactly the same steps with the same characters. These characters are a little bit sketchy in what they do, especially Adria, who does some very dodgy stuff. And you're like, yeah, I'd let her off as well. And it gets quite thrilling in the way that who's the cop? There's a cop who, Austin Amelio, who you'll probably recognise from a number of other films, is the cop that the Glen Powell character replaces, because the Austin Amelio character has been... Is it him? If it's not, it's one of the other few. I think it's him as Jasper. He's a little bit of a corrupt cop. Not a little bit, but he's been sidelined for like 3 months because of corruption. So that's when this Glen Powell character steps into his shoes and he's a lot better at pretending to be a hitman. So there's this collision between all of the elements, like the ex-husband, the other corrupt cop, and the loving couple. And it's based on a true story, but the relationship angle isn't part of it. It's inferred that he had similar sort of things going on, but not like the ones portrayed here. I felt a little bit of a Grosse Point Blank angle going on as well, which I would say is a rom-com. It's that kind of rom-com. It's still got some good action and some thrilling sequences, and the top two are just peerless. They're fantastic. It's just a bit superficial. I mean, it's as fun as superficial gets. There's not a lot to the plot, and there's not a lot of aftermath to make you think about stuff. But the leads are so enjoyable. So I'm going to give Hitman an 8.5 out of 10. It's a fantastic film. This is